Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how I bred all of these bedders that you can see in these two tanks. So I've had a few batches of fry here in the room over the last 2 months, and these are the results. So I'm going to give you guys a full breakdown of how I bred all of these bedders, the process and everything. I've got all the footage from these guys being eggs all the way to this size, and at the end of the video, we'll look at some of the nicest ones out of the batch and I'll show you what the parents look like. I'm very excited to bring you guys this video because this has been months in the making. I had to breed these fish, grow them out, and this by no means is going to be a short video. I'm going to try and remember as much as I can while I tell you guys the story of how I made these in depth. So hopefully you'll be able to follow it, but even if you don't want to breed bedders, hopefully this video is interesting and you guys get to see the full life cycle of how bedders are made, and also what the fry can look like. And to top it off even further, I'm going to be selling some of these in my store, so you should definitely go and check that out. I'm also going to be this afternoon selecting my next generation of breeders, setting them up, and I'm going to be trying to line breed some strains of these. So before we talk about any of that stuff, let's talk about breeding them. Breeding bedders can be a little bit challenging if you've never bred fish before, but I'd say they're about a 5 out of 10 in difficulty. Once you know how to breed them, they're very, very easy to make a lot of. And this is also something that before we talk about breeding, because hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to be successful breeding your fish, please make sure you have somewhere to sell them as well. Because if you breed 100 bedders and you want to grow them all out, you need somewhere to sell them. And they do take up a fair bit of space once they start getting a bit larger. So because I have a fish store, I can breed as many of these as I want and pretty much sell them no issues, but some other people might struggle. Okay, so the first step to breeding fighters is selecting a healthy pair. What you're gonna wanna do is go to your store, pick out a really nice male and female colors that you wanna cross together and start out with that. The way you tell a male from a female is females have normally shorter fins, and they're normally a little bit fatter and sometimes even a little bit smaller, but that's not normally the best way to do it. Males have a longer bottom fin, and the number one way to tell a male from a female is females have a very spottable ovipositor on the underneath of their bodies. It's like a little white dot, and this is what we're gonna use to indicate whether the female is ready to breed. So that's how you tell them apart. Very simple. Once you kind of get the hang of it, you'll be able to tell males and females apart from each other very easily. Selecting out a healthy pair, you want fish that eat well. I've got videos on how to select nice healthy fighters on my channel, but you want fish that eat well, are very active, and that's probably the best way to do it. So once you've got a male and a female, I normally like to try and get like 5 or 6 different types of fighters before I breed, just so that in case one doesn't want to breed, I've still got a backup. Yeah, well, look at these guys go for it, huh? Good on them. Then you're gonna need to condition them up. I like to use really high quality foods for this. I like to use my bug buffet, obviously. I love feeding them Artemia, and my number one thing is live blackworms that I feed mine. If I feed them live blackworms, they go absolutely nuts for it and they get fat really quick. The females start to get really, really fat. And this one here is about ready to breed. You'll see their bellies become super massive and they look like they're full at the back of their bodies. That's how you know they're starting to develop eggs, the females. And this little white dot, the ovipositor, will become really, really pronounced, and that's how you kind of tell that they're ready to breed. The way I condition them is normally I'll separate out the pairs into jars and I'll let them look at each other for about 15 minutes, 5 times a day. And then this just lets them get used to each other, but also gets her like really in the mood to breed. So feed them like 2 or 3 times a day, high protein, really nice, healthy foods, keep them happy, and they're gonna start wanting to breed. Then we're going to talk about setting up the pair. So there's a few ways to do this. I did this in tubs, which is kind of interesting, but you can do this in a tank. This size tank's all right. A 2-foot tank or even much smaller is okay, like a little 10-gallon works out really well. You're not going to want the water too high because otherwise the male is going to work really hard to collect the eggs when they start falling. So I make the water depth about 15 to 20 centimeters. I used, these little 4-litre containers. You're gonna want the temperature to be quite warm. They like it about 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 to 30 degrees Celsius. So nice warm water. And you're gonna want about a softer water pH, sort of like a 6 to a 7. They won't do that well in hard water. I mean, they might breed, but they just normally don't do that good. I also like to set mine up. I just floated mine in the top of the tanks over there, my Pleco tanks. So they stayed warm. It kind of like incubated them, but it was just a nice convenient spot for me to put them. They bred in them, so they were happy. So I also like to add like a bit of bubble wrap or an Indian almond leaf to the jar, just to release a little bit of tannin. I added some to mine, I think, and this just helps to drop the pH and get them in the mood even more. But what's gonna happen is the way they breed, this is very interesting. The male will build a bubble nest. He'll make all these little bubbles on the surface of the water with his saliva, I'm pretty sure. And he makes this huge nest, you'll see heaps of video of it, and he'll try and attract the female to breed. So once you've got that little box set up, what I like to do is, if you've been conditioning them properly, I just add them in. I don't bother with trying to like let them look at each other for a little bit. I just add them straight in and I leave them for about 48 hours. And if nothing happens, then it's time to take them out. But this is kind of the interesting part. So once you've set up the tank and once you've added the pair, it's kind of just up to you to decide how far you want to take it. Because sometimes if they're really keen, they're going to breed straight away, but sometimes they're not. And this is where it can get a little bit confusing. So what I recommend doing is just trying your best and trying the process until it just eventually works. Keep setting up your pair, put them together for 48 hours, and if nothing happens, take them out. And I guarantee that if you've conditioned them properly, within 48 hours, you're eventually going to get them to breed. That's pretty much the most simple way to explain that. There's a lot that goes into actually identifying their behaviors and things like that, which I can't really teach you. You're just gonna have to learn that. They're very personable fish and they do have little attitudes. So matching them up, sometimes you do have to play a bit of Married at First Sight and try and figure out how to actually get them to love each other. But sometimes they just instantly go for it and it's a little bit of a romance thing. So it's hard to work out, but you'll just get the hang of it. What will happen is eventually they'll spawn. You'll see the female and the male will start to get along and they'll start wrapping each other. And he squeezes her, releases her eggs, and he fertilizes them, and they'll fall down and he'll go down with his mouth and pick them up and stick them in the bubble nest. It's a super interesting process to watch. I love watching it. At first it looks like they're eating the eggs, but they're actually taking care of them. And they'll spawn for at least 5 hours, kind of like quite a long time, sometimes a little bit less, but I notice they're spawning for quite a while sometimes. After 5 hours, I remove them and I just remove the female and leave the male in there with the eggs, and the rest is up to him. So he'll actually take care of that bubble nest and he will take care of the eggs, constantly picking up the ones that have fallen, putting them back in the nest. So he's not gonna eat them, hopefully, if he's a good male. At this stage, I like to just keep it stable. I don't feed anyone. I just leave him in there with the eggs and he does his job. He takes care of them and they eventually hatch out about 24 hours later. He'll take care of them all the way until they're free swimming, but I like to leave them in there as long as possible. And then when they're about to start eating, so they're free swimming and you can see their little fish, you'll see them go from like eggs with tails to developing eyes to actual fish. Once you see them at that stage, I remove the male and his job's done. And now we have our babies, and now it's time to take care of them. So these fry are freaking tiny. They're very, very small and they're quite difficult to feed. I would recommend feeding bug buffet to start with and dusting it up into a fine, fine milk. But even this sometimes is not small enough. So I like to use green water. You can culture Infusoria. This is where the process can become a little bit hard, and you're also gonna need to hatch out live baby brine shrimp. I sell baby brine shrimp eggs now. My liquid gold brine shrimp eggs are great. I'd recommend the Bohea Bay cysts because they're a little bit smaller, but you're gonna need something tiny. So I fed mine green water. I get this from my ponds. The green algae water is full of like tiny little microscopic things they can eat. I feed this in combination with the bug buffet, and I'll feed them 3-4 times a day and just make sure that the water quality is as good as possible. Do not wanna screw up this part of the process. This is the hardest part, is actually keeping the babies alive and getting as many as you can see here. I've actually lost some along the way. I had a little bit of an accident with some chlorine and I ended up losing a few. It's the most important part is right now raising them up. So once I see that they're swimming around, they've got eyes and you can kind of see they're hunting, I'll add the green water in then and you'll actually see them start to eat. And they'll eat the green water and the brine shrimp for the first day until they're just big enough that they can start eating live baby brine shrimp. So like I said, I recommend Bohei Bay cysts because they're just super tiny. They won't be able to eat the Tibetan cysts from the start. They need to eat the Bohei Bay. Once you feed them baby brine shrimp, I hatch it out daily and feed it to them twice a day. They will start rapidly growing. And this is where I had them in the container. I moved them to a fry tray and they started growing out great, and it kept them in a real confined spot and they just loved it. Next time I breed them, I think I'm just gonna add them directly to a tank like this and keep the water level at about 25% full. So that's a really easy way to just raise them up. From there, I fed them bug buffet and brine shrimp all the way up until you can see them now. These are about 2.5 weeks older than these ones, and you can see how much they've grown. They grow pretty rapidly, especially if you can keep them with frequent water changes and lots of food like I do. Yeah, you'll end up with babies like this. That's the process for how to breed them. I think that's everything that I can tell you just over this video. I've got lots of them, but this is kind of just how I bred these ones. When do you separate them out? The best thing to do is when you grow up a batch, I grow them all together because they seem to, when they've stayed together as a batch since they were fry, not attack each other too much. These are kind of ignoring each other. The more you keep them fed, the better they're gonna do together, the less they're gonna nip each other's fins and the happier they're gonna be because they're just too busy thinking about eating. So I feed mine 3 or 4 times a day. This is about the size where we need to start thinking about separating out males and females. I'm gonna be jarring these up soon, but these are, I don't know, 2.5 months old now. And yeah, these ones I keep them nice and well fed and they don't attack each other. But there are a few males in here with a few ripped fins and they will start to nip each other's fins once they get a little bit bigger. But I find safety in numbers is the best thing. Don't remove any until you've decided that you're gonna just separate them all out. Once I start pulling out 3 or 4 of these, they're gonna start noticing something's up and they'll start to become a little bit more aggressive, I found in my experience. So what we're gonna do is I will show you guys, flash up a bunch of videos now of the results of what we got and finish up with a little montage, but thank you for watching and enjoy the montage and seeing the results of the babies.